Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a story that's more than just a chapter in a history book. It's the story of a company that started with a simple charter and ended up ruling a subcontinent. This is the incredible and often dark story of the East India Company. Picture this! It's the year 1600. Queen Elizabeth I is on the throne of England. A group of London merchants with dreams of exotic spices dancing in their heads get a royal charter. Their goal? To break into the lucrative spice trade in the East Indies, which was dominated by the Dutch and Portuguese. This new venture was called the Governor and Company of Merchants of London Trading into the East Indies. A bit of a mouthful, right? We know it better as the East India Company. Their first voyages were risky, facing pirates, storms, and rival traders. They were just a small player on a massive stage. Initially, their focus was on places like Indonesia, the original Spice Islands. But the Dutch were fiercely protective of their monopoly there, making it incredibly difficult for the British to gain a foothold. So, they turned their gaze elsewhere, towards a land of immense wealth, ancient culture, and complex politics. India. In 1612, the company won a major naval victory against the Portuguese off the coast of Surat. This impressed the Mughal emperor, Jahangir. Soon after, an English ambassador, Sato Masuroe, arrived at the opulent Mughal court. His mission was to secure trading rights for the company. After years of careful diplomacy and gift-giving, he succeeded. The company was granted permission to build factories, which were essentially fortified warehouses and trading posts in several port cities. For the next century and a half, the East India Company was, on the surface, just a trading firm. It bought Indian goods like cotton textiles, silk, indigo, dye, and saltpeter key, ingredient and gunpowder, and sold them for massive profits back in Europe. They brought British woolens and other goods to India. But frankly, Indian markets weren't that interested. The real currency was silver, which poured into India to pay for its coveted exports. The company established 3 major centers of power, known as presidencies: Bombay on the west coast, Madras on the southeast coast, and the most important of all, Calcutta in Bengal. These weren't just trading posts. They were growing into fortified English towns on Indian soil, complete with their own laws and small garrisons of soldiers. But at this point, the company was still a guest, operating at the mercy of the powerful Mughal Empire. However, the mid-18th century changed everything. The once mighty Mughal Empire was fracturing. Regional rulers, known as Nawabs and Nizams, were asserting their independence, creating a power vacuum. And where there's a power vacuum, there's an opportunity. The East India Company, led by ambitious and ruthless men like Robert Clive, began to play a new game. The game of politics and power. The turning point came in 1757 at the Battle of Plassey. The Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-Dowlah, had grown tired of the company's meddling and captured their fort in Calcutta. In response, Robert Clive marched his small army, a mix of British soldiers and Indian sepoys, to face the Nawab's vastly larger force. But Clive wasn't just relying on military might. He had a secret weapon: betrayal. He had conspired with one of the Nawab's key commanders, Mir Jafar, promising him the throne in exchange for his treachery on the battlefield. The battle itself was almost a non-event. Mir Jafar and his forces stood aside, and Clive's disciplined army easily routed the remaining loyal troops. Siraj-ud-Dowlah was captured and executed. Suddenly, the East India Company wasn't just a trading company anymore. It was the kingmaker of Bengal, the richest province in India. They installed Mir Jafar as a puppet ruler and began to systematically drain the region of its wealth. This was the beginning of the end for Mughal authority and the dawn of British dominance. With the riches of Bengal funding its expansion, the company's ambition grew exponentially. It wasn't just about trade anymore. It was about territory. It was about revenue. The company raised its own massive private army, larger than the official British Army itself. This army, composed mainly of Indian sepoys, led by British officers, became the tool of conquest. Throughout the late 18th and early 19th centuries, the company fought a series of wars against powerful Indian kingdoms. They clashed with the Maratha Confederacy in a series of brutal conflicts that raged across central India. They fought Tipu Sultan of Mysore, the Tiger of Mysore, a formidable opponent who used rocket technology against them. One by one, through a combination of military force, clever diplomacy, and outright deception, the Indian states fell. They were either annexed directly into company territory or forced into alliances, which effectively stripped them of their sovereignty. By the 1850s, the East India Company controlled almost the entire Indian subcontinent, either directly or indirectly. It had its own civil service, its own legal system, and its own army. It governed millions of people. Think about that for a second. A private for-profit corporation, headquartered thousands of miles away in London, was ruling an empire. The primary goal of this government was not the welfare of its subjects, but the profit of its shareholders. This corporate rule had devastating consequences. The company's policies were designed to extract maximum wealth. They dismantled traditional Indian industries, like the world-renowned textile manufacturing, to eliminate competition for British-made goods. They imposed heavy taxes on agriculture, often leading to famines that killed millions. The wealth that was siphoned out of India, an economic drain of staggering proportions, helped fuel Britain's Industrial Revolution. But the company's grip on power was not absolute. Resentment was simmering. In 1857, that resentment exploded into a massive uprising. We often call it the Sepoy Mutiny, but it was much more than that. It was a widespread rebellion involving soldiers, nobles, and common people across northern India who were fed up with British rule, its cultural insensitivity, and its economic exploitation. The immediate trigger was the introduction of new rifle cartridges greased with animal fat, which offended both Hindu and Muslim sepoys. The rebellion was vast and violent, shaking the foundations of company rule. After a year of brutal fighting, the British, with immense difficulty, suppressed the uprising. The consequences were profound. The British government decided that a private company could no longer be trusted to govern such a vast and volatile territory. In 1858, the British Crown stepped in. The East India Company was formally dissolved. Its territories, its armies, and its administrative functions were all transferred to the British government. Queen Victoria was declared the Empress of India, and the era of the British Raj began. The company, which had started as a small group of merchants seeking spices, had laid the groundwork for nearly a century of direct imperial rule. Its legacy is complex. It built railways and infrastructure, but it did so for the purpose of exploitation, leaving behind deep scars of economic plunder and political subjugation that would shape the future of India for generations to come. So, the next time you hear the name East India Company, remember, it wasn't just a business. It was a corporate raider that became an empire, a testament to the insatiable hunger for profit and power, and a story that forever changed the course of both British and Indian history. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey into the past interesting, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world. Let me know in the comments what other historical topics you'd like to see covered. See you in the next video.